Welcome and welcome back to day 2 of our Pushing Pause 3-day stress relief and self-care challenge. For today's session, we have a couple different pieces to talk on. One part is why self-care matters even more, especially for women who are over 40, even when it feels like we're too busy for it. You may have heard, those of you in the yoga and mindfulness meditation worlds, you may have heard the saying, meditate for 20 minutes a day. Unless you are busy, then meditate for an hour a day. And people laugh at it, but there's actually a lot of wisdom in it, in that our self-care practices become even more important when life gets busy. And those are the times we're most likely to let our self-care practices drop. So here's the deal. 2-minute breakdown on why it really matters. So when your body and mind and spirit have the least capacity to keep pushing without consequences, those are the times that you feel the busiest and the most stressed. It's a signal often from your body saying, hey, this isn't sustainable. And for women, especially those of us who are over 40, stress hits harder at this age. As we age, hormonal shifts, especially when it comes to estrogen and progesterone, how they shift and change, they can actually make the nervous system more sensitive to stress. And what maybe you could power through when you were in your 20s or even early 30s can now start to lead to a fatigue that you feel more deeply. It can start to mess with your sleep, which can add to more fatigue and more stress. When we're sleep deprived, part of our brain called the amygdala, that is responsible for helping us process things emotionally, it kicks into overdrive. And those are the times when you might lose control over your emotions more quickly than you would otherwise. The straw that broke the camel's back, the little thing that happens and you burst into tears or you burst into a rage. Those things happen more easily for us. For some folks, it starts to happen in their late 30s. For some folks, that happens over 40. So self-care gets even more important as we age. Sometimes people think that the opposite is true, but not the case. Also, chronic stress, if you've been under stress that is not abating, that you're not able to take a reset from, chronic stress also drains the body's reserves. So we talked a little bit about cortisol yesterday. Chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated, and that taxes your adrenal system. That can mess with your blood sugar. It can affect your thyroid. It can affect immune function. And it can also affect that progesterone production because over 40, your ovaries start to produce, or when you're under 40, your ovaries produce more of your progesterone, and that shifts. That starts to shift mid 30s to 40. Your adrenals start to produce that hormone instead. So when they're overloaded with cortisol production, that can drop that progesterone down lower. And again, that's one of those hormones that can help us feel more calm, centered, and grounded. So stress, too much stress, especially over 40, really sets us up for a bigger mess. And some people describe feeling tired but wired. You're exhausted, you're fatigued, but there's all this tension. That's a sign that you might be in that state where cortisol has been elevated and you might be moving toward a chronic stress state there. So self-care can step in and help restore what stress is constantly depleting and draining. When we restore self-care, we have some phenomenal opportunities to calm the nervous system, to support mental health and emotional resilience. It can reduce inflammation, support joint health and mobility, support your digestion and immune function. And again, sometimes self-care is thought of as this like indulgent thing, like, oh, I'm going to have time to take a beautiful lavender bubble bath and sip a cup of tea. And that could be self-care for you, maybe. But one of the things I'd really love to share and communicate with this challenge is that self-care can literally be practicing a moment of mindfulness to take a slow, deep breath. And today we'll talk a little bit about the idea of pausing and how pausing can offer us an opportunity for these little mini resets. Yesterday, we talked a bit about how stress can be kind of like a tea kettle. And if the heat is set to medium, the water might be simmery and hot in the kettle, but the kettle might not be whistling because enough steam is able to get out. The heat isn't letting too much build up. But during times that the heat is turned up a bit, if we don't have opportunities to either let some steam escape from the kettle or to turn down the heat, we end up with that tea kettle whistling and whistling. And I don't know about you, but my tea kettle has the most annoying, loud, ear-piercing whistle that is such a good analogy for stress, like that whoa sound. So pausing can be a literal moment, just stopping. And if you are noticing that for you, stress shows up a lot in your mind and your thoughts get really busy, or feel like there's a lot of pressure that's coming from your thoughts, you're thinking, I know for some folks they've shared this week, they're thinking, like, I have 3 weeks worth of stuff to get done and I have 1 day or a half a day to do it in. If your mind is rolling around those thoughts, that puts your body and your nervous system in that more sympathetic mode. It's ready to fight, flight, or flee, or freeze. And what can happen when we're there? Our brain doesn't have access to all of its resources. It's like it puts blinders on and it goes in survival mode, which can make it more difficult sometimes to deal with the situations we face. So pausing can mean literally stopping what you're doing. Maybe if you found the resting a hand on the ribs and a hand on the belly from yesterday helpful, you might visit a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly. And take your next breath in towards your low back. And as you exhale, you might sigh that out through the mouth. Letting the shoulders drop if you like as you do. That can be a pause. And just that 10 seconds can have an effect on your physiology and give you a little mini pause or a micro break to let a little of the steam out of the tea kettle. So it might be like popping open the little spout to let some of the steam out. It's so simple, it's so short, and it can have such a profound effect. If you have more than 10 seconds, but just that breath might be enough. I know some of you are caregiving for kiddos and for folks who are elderly. Sometimes when we're in those situations, it's really hard to just put them on hold to do something for yourself. When you find yourself feeling stressed in a moment that you can't just step away, that hand to the heart, hand to the belly, a slow, deep breath can give that little mini release to help your body break that cycle of being in that tension and that stress, and can help you start to shift back toward that more parasympathetic mode. I want to offer you a couple more tips and tricks too. Another one that you can do on the fly in the moment that is not obvious, that no one can see necessarily. This one is super funny, but it's to take your tongue and run your tongue back and forth across the roof of your mouth. And feel free to try it. And it's difficult, right, to see that someone is doing that unless you're really obvious about it. But why that works, it starts to stimulate the muscles that we use when we're chewing and eating. And that helps stimulate the parasympathetic, that rest, digest, and repair side of the nervous system. You get an extra bonus if you relax your jaw while you do it. For many of us in those tense moments, we grit our teeth and we hold tension in our jaws. And so if you can allow just a little space between your teeth, and then sliding the tongue back and forth over the roof of the mouth, that can help create a shift again in your nervous system and your physiological state. It's not 100% for everyone. Some people find it too stimulating or too funny to do, but it may work. And again, that's one that you can do without anyone seeing your hands going anywhere. Though if you're in a setting where you can model it, it can be a really lovely thing to explain to other people, or for those of you who are caregiving, to explain, oh, I felt stressed and I needed to pause and take a deep breath. And that helps me feel better. Those can be powerful things to share and model for each other. And then one last one for today that I'd like to offer too. And this is the part that will be our official challenge activity for today. This one, we're going to pair that pause to notice the breath. We're going to pair that with some movement in the shoulders. So some people do like to stay with that hand on the heart, hand on the belly here. It's okay to rest the arms down by the sides or where they're comfy. For this exercise, when you find your next inhale, you'll let your shoulders lift up by the ears. You can think of that inhale trying to go towards your low back. And then as you exhale, let the shoulders slide down the back. Now for this one, you get to pick if you'd like to exhale through the nose or through the mouth. We talked about the physiological sigh yesterday, where we take the exhale out through the mouth. Sometimes in yoga, that's described as a cleansing breath. But there's also some benefit to exhaling through the nose, especially in a slow and controlled way. And then feel free, you can take up to 10 breaths that way if it feels helpful. As little as 1 can make a difference, though they often recommend 3 to 5 for an optimal shift in the nervous system. And part of why that works, again, we have that mindful breath that we're noticing to help link the movement to it. That helps us pause from any of those thoughts that are going. And these muscles here that help connect the neck and the shoulders, upper trapezius muscles, they are known for being very tense and holding on to tension and stress. And so when we take this opportunity to lift and lower, we give those muscles a chance to release the tension. And the lift gives them a chance to really contract when they might be partly contracted and holding on there. The lift really gives them a chance to contract and then to release. So that's today's challenge to bring in. If you're here, you've done it once, but I'd encourage you to see if you can find one more time during the day to bring in the inhale as the shoulders lift and the exhale as they lower. Once can help, but ideally 3 to 5 times. And then bonus options, the tracing the tongue side to side. Again, very, very subtle, not easy for people to pick up on. Or hand to heart, hand to belly, and just pausing. You know, we don't say when we're doing this, like, you stop thinking and you do this. But as you rest a hand on the ribs, a hand on the belly, and begin to notice your breath, it does help pause those thoughts. It's that opportunity to pause from thinking, to reconnect mind and body. They're short, but they're surprisingly effective. And they can serve as an opportunity to open the nozzle on the tea kettle and just let some steam out so that you have a little more reserve. And then if you can practice these things again, maybe you're practicing them every 10 minutes if things are really tense. Maybe it's every hour, every couple hours. You can use them as you need. But taking little breaks, even if you don't feel like you're about to hear that tea kettle whistle, even if you think, I'm a little stressed, but I'm mostly okay, that can be a great time to let some of that go. So we'll pause here for questions for those who are here live. If you're watching the recording, again, feel free to drop your thoughts, your experiences in the Facebook group. And if you can't make the live tomorrow, but you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Facebook group or send them over my way. I'm more than happy to help. And I would offer the opportunity to give yourself a pat on the back for taking the time to be here today and do this. It's so great to see so many people pausing and taking the time to offer some self-care and some stress relief in what can be such a busy season. Thank you.